3 years of marriage, zero communication. She left, now he can't forgive himself. Darius Killian Wraith discovered his wife had left him while standing in his boxer shorts holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. Half the closet was empty. Not becoming empty. Not in the process of empty. Completely, utterly, devastatingly empty. Every single item that had belonged to Sage Meadow Wraith, now presumably back to being Sage Meadow Heart, was gone. The vintage band t-shirts she'd collected. The ridiculous collection of sneakers she'd insisted on keeping despite his offers to buy her designer shoes. The soft cotton dresses she wore on weekends. The leather jacket that had smelled like her perfume. All of it. Gone. Darius set down his coffee cup with a hand that shook, something that hadn't happened since his first hostile takeover 20 years ago, and walked through the penthouse like a ghost touring his own haunting. The living room, her books were missing from the shelves. The throw blankets she'd bought to make the space less like a minimalist prison were gone. The small succulent garden she'd kept by the window vanished. The kitchen, her favorite coffee mug with the chipped handle that she'd refused to replace, was absent from its usual spot. The terrible romance novels she'd left on the counter, the ones he'd pretended not to notice her reading, disappeared. The bathroom, her toothbrush, her shampoo that smelled like vanilla and something floral he'd never been able to identify, her collection of skincare products that had taken up an entire shelf, all gone. She'd erased herself from his life so completely it was like she'd never existed. Except she had existed. For 3 years she'd been his wife. And he'd been too busy, too distracted, too fucking stupid to notice she was drowning until she'd already left. Darius found the note on his pillow. Of course she'd left a note, because Sage was nothing if not considerate, even when ending a marriage. The handwriting was her distinctive looping scrawl. Darius, I'm sorry to do this in a letter, but we both know if I tried to tell you in person, you'd either be in a meeting or you'd barely look up from your phone. I can't do this anymore. 3 years of marriage, and I don't think we've had a real conversation in at least 2 of them. You're married to your work, and I'm just furniture. Expensive, well-maintained furniture that you occasionally remember to acknowledge. I'm not angry. I'm just tired. Tired of being lonely in a marriage. Tired of eating dinner alone. Tired of sleeping next to someone who feels 1,000 miles away. I'm staying with my sister for now. My lawyer will contact yours about the divorce. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope it makes you happier than I did. P.S. I took the coffee maker. I know you bought it, but I'm the only one who ever used it anyway. Darius read the note 3 times, each reading making his chest tighter, until he thought he might actually be having a heart attack at 48 years old in his empty penthouse wearing nothing but designer boxer shorts. She'd left. Sage, with her terrible taste in music and her habit of leaving sticky notes with encouraging messages around the apartment, and her bright, brilliant smile that he hadn't seen directed at him in months, had left. And he had no one to blame but himself. His phone rang. Darius looked at the screen. Caliph Morrow work. He answered on autopilot. What? Good morning to you too, sunshine. Listen, the Singapore investors are getting cold feet about the... Darius, are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. The lie tasted like ash. What about Singapore? Forget Singapore for a second. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Just... He looked around the empty penthouse, at all the spaces where Sage should be. Sage left me. Silence on the other end. Then, she what? Left. Moved out. Took her things. Left a note saying she wants a divorce. Saying it out loud made it real in a way that seeing the empty closet hadn't. She's gone, Kay. Darius, I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already in my car. Don't do anything stupid before I get there. She hung up before he could argue. Darius stood in his living room. His living room now, not theirs because there was no theirs anymore, and tried to remember the last real conversation he'd had with his wife. Last week? Last month? 3 months ago, his memory supplied with cruel accuracy. 3 months since they'd talked about anything more substantial than his schedule or her day in passing. 3 months since he'd really looked at her, seen her, paid attention to anything beyond his own relentless ambition. And she'd been slipping away the entire time, and he'd been too blind to notice. The coffee cup he'd abandoned in the closet sat on the marble counter, mocking him with its coldness. Sage always made the coffee in the mornings, perfectly balanced, exactly how he liked it, ready before he even woke up most days. He'd never thanked her for it. Not once in 3 years. God, what have I done? Scene: Kalitha's intervention. Visual description: the penthouse living room, 30 minutes later. Kalith, a sharp, elegant woman in her mid-40s in a power suit, sitting across from Darius, who's now dressed but looks completely destroyed. Coffee table between them covered with the notes Sage left. Kalith Moreau had known Darius for 15 years. She'd seen him negotiate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, fire entire departments with cold efficiency, and build an empire through sheer force of will. She'd never seen him cry. Until today. I didn't even know something was wrong, Darius said, his voice hollow. He'd gotten dressed, expensive suit, perfect tie, but his eyes were devastated. How did I not know my own marriage was falling apart? Kalith read Sage's note for the 3rd time and felt anger rising in her chest. Not at Sage, never at Sage, who was lovely and kind and had tried so hard to make Darius happy. At Darius, her best friend and business partner, who'd apparently been the worst husband in existence for 3 years. Darius, she said carefully, when was the last time you had dinner with Sage? I don't know. Last week. Try 2 months ago. I know because she mentioned it to Lysandra at that charity gala. The one where you left early for a conference call with Tokyo. Darius flinched. I had to take that call. Did you? Or did you choose to take that call because work is easier than being present in your marriage? That's not. He stopped because it was fair. It was more than fair. It was the truth he'd been avoiding for months. I thought she understood. I thought she knew how important my work is. Your work, Darius. Not our work. Not the marriage's work. Your work. Kalith leaned forward. Sage is 25 years old. She married you when she was 22, barely out of college, completely in love with a man who apparently stopped seeing her the moment the honeymoon ended. What did you expect would happen? I expected her to talk to me. To tell me something was wrong. She did. Repeatedly. You just weren't listening. Kalith pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Lysandra has been keeping me updated because she was worried. Let me read you some highlights. Sage asked if you could do date night last Tuesday. You canceled for a meeting. She asked if you'd come to her art show opening 3 weeks ago. You sent flowers instead. She made you a birthday dinner 2 months ago. You ate it while on a conference call and didn't even taste it. Each word was a knife. Darius felt them all. I'm a terrible person, he said quietly. You're not terrible. You're neglectful and workaholic and emotionally unavailable. But you're not terrible. Kalitha's voice softened slightly. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I do? She wants a divorce. She left. It's over. Is it? Kalith raised an eyebrow. Because from where I'm sitting, this note doesn't sound like someone who's completely given up. It sounds like someone who's desperate to be seen by a man who spent 3 years looking through her. Darius read the note again. I hope it makes you happier than I did. Not I hate you. Not I never loved you. Just tired. Lonely. She thinks she didn't make me happy, he said, and his voice cracked. Kay, She made me happier than I've been in my entire life. I just never told her. Then maybe it's time you did.
If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more amazing love stories. Alright, back to the story.
She won't talk to me. Then make her listen. Grand gesture. Big romantic moment. All the things you're terrible at. Caliph stood, smoothing her suit. But Darius? If you're going to do this, you need to actually change. Not just apologize and go back to the same patterns. Sage deserves better than that. I know. Do you? Because 3 years of evidence suggests otherwise. It was harsh. It was brutal. It was exactly what he needed to hear. After Caliph left, Darius sat alone in his empty penthouse and made a decision. He was going to win back his wife. And this time, he was going to actually deserve her. Darius had built his empire on the principle that emotion was weakness. At 48, he was the CEO of Wraith Industries, a multinational conglomerate worth billions. He'd started with nothing, a kid from the wrong side of Detroit who'd clawed his way through business school on scholarships and spite, building his first company at 25 and never looking back. By 30, he was a millionaire. By 40, a billionaire. By 45, he was untouchable. And completely, utterly alone. He'd married twice before Sage. The first marriage had lasted 6 months. His college sweetheart who'd realized she'd married his ambition, not him. The second had lasted 2 years. A fellow executive who'd understood the work but eventually admitted they were business partners, not lovers. Then, 3 years ago, he'd met Sage at a charity art auction. She'd been 22, fresh out of art school, volunteering to help set up the exhibition. He'd been 45, there to make an appearance and write a check. She'd accidentally spilled champagne on his Tom Ford suit while trying to rearrange a sculpture. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she'd said, her hazel eyes wide with horror. "I'll pay for the cleaning, the sculpture was tilting and I tried to catch it and..." "It's fine," he'd said and meant it. Because she was beautiful, not in the polished, artificial way of the women he usually dated, but in a natural, vibrant way that made his chest feel strange. The suit survived worse. "Still, I feel terrible." She'd pulled out napkins, trying to blot the stain, and he'd found himself charmed by her flustered competence. "I'm Sage, by the way. Sage Hart. Professional disaster and amateur artist. Darius Wraith. Professional workaholic and amateur human being." She'd laughed, bright and genuine, and something in him had shifted. They'd married 6 months later in a small ceremony that his business associates had called impulsive and ill-advised. There was a 23-year age gap. She had no family wealth, no connections, no understanding of his world. Everyone had predicted it would fail. They'd been right. Except they'd been wrong about why. The marriage hadn't failed because of the age gap or the different worlds they came from. It had failed because Darius had done exactly what he always did, prioritized work over everything else, assumed love would sustain itself without effort, and slowly suffocated something beautiful through sheer neglect. His office phone buzzed. "Mr. Wraith, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Darius looked at the wedding photo on his desk, Sage in a simple white dress, laughing at something he'd said, him looking at her with an expression of pure joy he didn't recognize on his own face anymore. "Cancel it," he said. "Sir? Cancel the meeting. Cancel everything for today. I'm taking a personal day." Silence. "Then, should I be concerned, Mr. Wraith? You haven't taken a personal day in 7 years. I should have taken 1,000. He hung up and dialed a number he'd avoided calling for 3 days. Sage's sister, Juniper, answered on the 3rd ring. "If you're calling to harass my sister, I'm hanging up and blocking this number." "I'm not calling to harass anyone. Darius's voice caught. I just want to know if she's okay. You're 3 years too late for that concern. I know. God, Juniper, I know. He ran a hand through his hair, silver at the temples now, another reminder of the years that had passed. Just tell me she's okay. Please. A long pause. Then, reluctantly, she's not okay. She's devastated. She cries herself to sleep every night. And do you know what the worst part is? She keeps apologizing. Like she's the one who failed. The words hit like physical blows. Can I see her? Absolutely not. Juniper. No, Darius. You don't get to show up now that she's finally put herself first. You had 3 years to see her, to hear her, to give a damn. She's done waiting for you to care. I've always cared. No. You've always been comfortable. There's a difference. Juniper's voice was hard. Sage loved you so much it was painful to watch. She rearranged her entire life for you. Gave up her art studio because you said the apartment was too cluttered. Stopped seeing her friends because you were always too tired for social events. Learned to be invisible because that's what you wanted. That's not what I wanted, Darius said desperately. I never wanted her to be invisible. Then what did you want? Because from where I'm standing, you got exactly what you optimized for. A wife who didn't disturb your routine, didn't make demands, didn't require emotional labor. You turned her into a ghost in her own marriage. I made a mistake. You made 1,000 mistakes, Darius. Every day for 3 years. Every missed dinner, every canceled date, every time you chose a conference call over a conversation. Juniper's voice softened slightly. Look, I actually liked you when you two first got together. You seemed different, present, attentive, genuinely smitten. But that man disappeared the moment you put a ring on her finger. I can be that man again. Can you? Or are you just panicking because your comfortable arrangement fell apart? It was a fair question. One Darius had been asking himself for 3 days. Was he trying to win Sage back because he loved her? Or because he hated the disruption to his perfectly ordered life? I love her, he said quietly. I've loved her since the moment she spilled champagne on my suit and looked at me like I was a person instead of a bank account. I just forgot to show it. Forgot to say it. Forgot everything except work. That's the problem, Darius. Love shouldn't be something you forget. I know. And I want to do better. I want to be better. I just need a chance to prove it. Juniper sighed. She's not ready to see you. Maybe in a few weeks. I'll wait. However long it takes. Darius stared at the wedding photo. Just tell her I'm sorry. Tell her she was never furniture. Tell her she made me happier than anything in my entire life, and I'm the biggest idiot alive for not telling her every single day. Tell her yourself. When she's ready. The line went dead. That night, Darius did something he should have done years ago. He actually paid attention. He pulled up 3 years of calendar appointments. 3 years of emails. 3 years of credit card statements showing dinners eaten alone, gifts ordered by his assistant, automated transfers to Sage's account that he'd thought counted as caring. The evidence of his failure was overwhelming. Year 1, the honeymoon phase, that wasn't. 47 business dinners. 23 canceled date nights. 12 forgotten anniversaries. Monthly ones Sage had tried to establish. 3 vacations planned, 3 vacations canceled for emergencies. 156 emails from Sage marked unread. Year 2, the slow death. 89 business dinners. 41 canceled date nights. 0 vacations even planned. 247 emails from Sage marked unread. Last, I love you, said, March 14th. His assistant had reminded him it was White Day. Year 3, the ghost marriage. 134 business dinners. No date nights even scheduled. 0 personal conversations longer than 5 minutes. He tracked them in his phone logs. 312 emails from Sage marked unread. Last, I love you, said January 3rd, New Year's guilt. Darius opened the unread emails with shaking hands. From Sage Wraith date, June 15th, year 1 subject, date night idea? Hey love, I found this amazing little jazz club in the village. Very low-key, not fancy, just good music and good vibes. Want to check it out Friday? I know you're busy, but I miss you. Let me know. He'd never responded. From Sage Wraith date, October 3rd, year 1 subject, are you okay? Darius, you've been working until 2 a.m. every night this week. I'm worried about you. Can we talk? Maybe have breakfast together tomorrow? I feel like I haven't really seen you in weeks. He'd never responded. From Sage Wraith date, February 14th, year 2 subject, Valentine's Day. I know you think Valentine's Day is a commercial holiday, you've mentioned it about 47 times, but I made us dinner anyway. Coke au vin, your favorite. I'll keep it warm until you get home. I love you, Sage. He'd gotten home at midnight. The dinner had been cold. She'd been asleep on the couch, and he'd woken her just long enough to say he had an early meeting and went straight to bed. From Sage Wraith date, August 22nd, year 2 subject, I miss you. Darius, I miss you. I know you're in the same apartment, sleeping in the same bed, but I miss you. I miss talking to you. I miss hearing about your day. I miss being something other than a name in your calendar. Can we try? Please? Just one dinner where we actually talk? Love always, Sage. He'd read this one. He remembered reading it. He'd even drafted a response saying they'd talk soon. He'd never sent it. From Sage Wraith date, March 30th, year 3 subject, my art show. Hi Darius. I'm having a small showing at the River Gallery next Friday at 7 p.m. It's nothing major, just a few pieces I've been working on. I know you're busy, but it would mean the world if you could come. Just for an hour? Let me know, Sage. He'd sent flowers with a card, proud of you. Sorry I can't make it. D. He hadn't been proud. He hadn't even known what the show was about. His assistant had ordered the flowers. From Sage Wraith date, July 15th, year 3 subject, no subject. I don't know if you read these anymore. Maybe you never did. But I need to say this somewhere. I feel invisible. I feel like I'm disappearing a little more every day, and you don't even notice. I thought marriage meant building a life together, but I'm just here, existing around your schedule. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if you even want to fix this. I'm so lonely, Darius. And the worst part is you're right here. The date on that email, 3 weeks before she left. 3 weeks and he hadn't read it. Darius closed his laptop and put his head in his hands. He destroyed his marriage through 1,000 small acts of neglect. Not with cruelty or betrayal, but with simple, devastating indifference. Sage had been drowning, and he'd been too busy to notice the water rising. You need professional help, Caliph said bluntly over lunch the next day. I'm not seeing a therapist. Not for you. For the campaign to win Sage back. She gestured to the woman sitting beside her. This is Thessaly Moonridge. She's a relationship therapist, and more importantly, she specializes in helping emotionally constipated executives learn how to be human. Thessaly smiled. She makes me sound delightful. You are delightful. Darius is a disaster. Caliph turned to him. Tell Thessaly everything. And I mean everything. No corporate bullshit, no executive posturing. Actual truth. Darius looked at Thessaly, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp, knowing eyes, and felt suddenly like he was being x-rayed. Why did you marry Sage? Thessaly asked without preamble. Because I loved her. Not good enough. Why did you love her? Darius thought about it, really thought. Because she made me feel human. Before Sage, my life was just work. Deals, acquisitions, board meetings. I was good at it. Successful. But empty. He paused. Sage laughed at my terrible jokes. She left sticky notes with terrible puns around the apartment. She painted in the living room even though I said the smell bothered me, which it didn't. I just thought I should say something, and she'd get this look on her face when she was creating, like she was in another world. And when she looked at me, I felt like I was someone worth looking at. Past tense, Thessaly noted. When did she stop looking at you like that? About 6 months into the marriage. Maybe earlier. The admission hurt. I thought she was settling into comfortable routines. I didn't realize she was giving up. And you? When did you stop looking at her? Darius wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Probably around the same time. I got comfortable. Took her for granted. Assumed she'd always be there. Classic mistake. Thessaly pulled out a notebook. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to do exactly what I say when I say it, with no shortcuts and no delegating to your assistant. Understood? Understood. First, therapy for you. Individual sessions, twice a week. You clearly have attachment issues and a workaholic tendency that borders on addiction. I don't need. You ignored your wife for 3 years and only noticed she was unhappy when she left. You need therapy. Thessaly's voice was firm. Second, you're going to write Sage a letter. An actual letter, handwritten, detailing every way you failed her and every specific change you're making. She won't read it. Her sister will. And eventually, Sage will be curious enough to look. Thessaly made a note. Third, you're going to actually change your life. Not promise to change. Not plan to change. Actually change. Starting today. How? Cut your work hours by half. That's impossible. It's completely possible. You're the CEO. Delegate. Hire a CEO. Do whatever it takes. Thessaly leaned forward. Here's the truth, Darius. Sage didn't leave because you worked too much. She left because you chose work over her every single time. You showed her, repeatedly, that she wasn't a priority. If you want her back, you need to prove, through actions, not words, that you've changed what you value. Caliph nodded. I've already started interviewing COO candidates. And I'm taking over the Singapore deal. You're officially on relationship rehabilitation leave. I can't just abandon. You can. And you will. Because this is your last chance, Darius. Calipha's voice was gentle but firm. Sage isn't going to give you another one. Hell, I'm not sure she should give you this one. But if you're serious about fixing this, you need to burn your old life down and build something new. Darius looked between them. These two formidable women who were, for some reason, willing to help him despite his epic failures. Okay, he said. Tell me what to do. Thessaly smiled. First, let's talk about why you're terrified of emotional vulnerability. Darius had written billion-dollar contracts, hostile takeover proposals, and speeches that moved markets. He'd never struggled so hard to write 6 pages. The letter to Sage took him 4 days and 37 attempts. Thessaly had forbidden him from treating it like a business proposal. No bullet points, no executive summaries, just raw, honest emotion. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done. I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if Juniper will even give it to you. But I need to say these things, even if you never see them. I'm sorry. I know those words are inadequate. They're the same 2 words every terrible husband says when he's finally forced to confront his failures. But I'm sorry for every dinner I missed. Every date I canceled. Every time I chose a conference call over a conversation with you. I'm sorry for reading your emails and not responding. For hearing your unhappiness and pretending I didn't. For watching you slowly disappear and convincing myself you were just adjusting to marriage. You weren't adjusting. You were drowning. And I was too selfish, too comfortable, too goddamn blind to see it. I've spent the last week going through our entire marriage. Every calendar entry, every email, every moment I chose wrong. The evidence of my failure is overwhelming. I wasn't a husband. I was a roommate who occasionally shared a bed with you and thought that counted as intimacy. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. You deserved a partner who actually showed up. Who remembered that love is a verb, not just a feeling. Who prioritized you the way you prioritized me every single day. I can't undo 3 years of neglect. I can't give you back the time I stole through my indifference. But I can tell you the truth. You were never furniture. You were the sun in my solar system, and I was so focused on my own orbit that I forgot to look up. You made me happier than I've ever been. Every terrible pun, every sticky note, every moment you smiled at me like I was worth smiling at, those were the best parts of my life. I just never told you. I'm in therapy now. I'm cutting my work hours. I'm learning how to be the man I should have been 3 years ago. Not because I want you to come back, though God, I want that more than I've ever wanted anything, but because you were right. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not hiding behind work. If you're willing, someday, not now, I know you need space, I'd like to try again. As different people. As a man who actually deserves you and a woman who knows her worth. But if you're not willing, I understand. I'll sign whatever papers your lawyer sends. I'll leave you alone. I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I had something precious and destroyed it through simple, stupid neglect. Either way, I need you to know, you were enough. You were always enough. More than enough. The failure was never yours. It was always only me. I love you, Sage. I should have said it every day. I should have shown it every moment. I'm sorry I didn't. Darius. He sealed the letter and sent it to Juniper with a simple text. Please give this to her when she's ready. No rush. I can wait. Then he sat in his empty penthouse and hoped it wasn't too late to become the man Sage had needed him to be all along. Dear viewers, he's finally seen what he lost. But is a letter enough? Can someone really change after years of neglect? What do you think Sage should do? Tell me in the comments. Sage Meadowheart, she'd gone back to her maiden name in her head, even though the divorce wasn't final, hadn't painted in 3 years. Not really painted. Not the way she used to, with wild abandon and joy and the feeling that she was channeling something bigger than herself. She tried. God, she tried. But every time she picked up a brush, all she could create was emptiness. Gray canvases. Muted colors. Half-finished pieces that captured exactly how she felt. Incomplete. You need to eat something, Juniper said, appearing in the doorway with a sandwich. Her older sister, 32, successful, fierce, had taken her in without hesitation. Sage, you've barely touched food in 4 days. I'm not hungry. You're never hungry. Eat anyway. Juniper set the plate down and sat beside her on the floor. Did you sleep at all last night? Some. A lie. Sage had spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying 3 years of marriage and wondering where, exactly, she'd lost herself. She'd been so young when she married Darius. 22, fresh out of art school, full of dreams and stupid, naive hope. He'd been 45, successful, sophisticated, completely unlike anyone she'd ever met. When he'd looked at her at that charity auction, really looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the room, she'd felt seen for the first time in her life. The courtship had been whirlwind and intense. Darius had pursued her with single-minded focus, showing up at her studio with coffee, asking about her art, actually listening when she talked about her creative process. He'd made her feel important, valued. Marry me, he'd said after 6 months, over dinner at a tiny Italian restaurant that served the best carbonara in Manhattan. I know it's fast. I know people will say I'm too old for you or you're too young for me. I don't care. I want to build a life with you. Yes, she'd said, because she'd been completely, stupidly in love. The wedding had been small. Just Juniper, a few friends, and some of Darius's business associates who'd looked at her like she was a fascinating social experiment. They'd honeymooned in Tuscany, 2 weeks of painting countryside vistas while Darius worked remotely but still made time for long dinners and longer conversations. It had been perfect. And then they'd come home, and Darius had gone back to being a CO, and Sage had slowly realized she'd married a man who'd shown her a version of himself that only existed on vacation. He sent another letter, Juniper said quietly. Sage's heart jumped. When? Yesterday. Via courier. Very dramatic. Juniper pulled an envelope from her pocket. I wasn't going to give it to you yet, but... Sage, he's trying. I don't know if it's enough, but he's trying. I don't want to read it. Okay. I mean it. I don't want to get sucked back into hoping he'll change when he won't. I believe you. He's probably just panicking because his comfortable routine got disrupted. Possibly. Sage grabbed the envelope. This is a bad idea. Probably. She opened it with shaking hands. Sage read the letter 3 times. The first time, she cried so hard she couldn't see the words. The second time, she felt anger rise, hot and justified. 3 years. He had 3 years to say these things, to see me, to care. But the third time, she felt something dangerous, hope. He's in therapy, she said, her voice hollow. He went through all our calendar appointments. All the emails I sent that he never read. She looked up at Juniper. He knows. He finally knows how badly he failed. Knowing and changing are different things, Juniper said gently. I know. Sage touched the letter, Darius's handwriting blurring through her tears. But he wrote this by hand. Darius never writes anything by hand. He has people for that. And look, she pointed to a smudged word. He was crying when he wrote this. The ink smeared. Tears don't undo 3 years of neglect. I know that too. Sage folded the letter carefully. But what if he means it? What if he actually changes? Then he'll prove it through sustained action over time, not through one good letter. Juniper took Sage's hand. Honey, I need you to be honest with yourself. Why did you stay so long? What? You were unhappy for at least 2 years. Maybe longer. Why didn't you leave sooner? Sage had asked herself this question 1,000 times. Because I kept thinking it would get better. That he'd notice. That I'd done something wrong and if I just tried harder, was more patient, more understanding. Stop. Juniper's voice was firm. You are not responsible for fixing a grown man's emotional constipation. You were 22 years old, Sage. Fresh out of college, marrying a man old enough to be your father. The power dynamic was already skewed. And he used that, maybe not consciously, but he used it to make you smaller and quieter and more convenient. He didn't mean to. Intent doesn't matter. Impact does. And the impact was that you lost yourself completely. Juniper squeezed her hand. I watched you shrink over 3 years. You stopped painting. You stopped seeing friends. You stopped talking about your dreams. You became an accessory to his life instead of the main character in your own. The words hit like physical blows because they were true. Sage had spent 3 years trying to be the perfect wife for a man who barely noticed she existed. She'd learned to be quiet during his calls. To eat dinner alone without complaining. To sleep next to someone who felt 1,000 miles away and pretend it didn't hurt. She'd become a ghost in her own marriage. I don't know if I can do this again, she whispered. What if I go back and nothing changes? What if he promises everything and then 6 months later, we're right back where we started? Then you leave again. But this time, you leave knowing you gave him every possible chance. Juniper paused. The question is, do you want to give him another chance? Did she? Sage thought about Darius, not the cold, distant so he'd become, but the man she'd fallen in love with. The one who'd shown up at her studio with coffee and actually looked at her paintings, really looked, and asked intelligent questions. The one who'd held her while she cried about a rejected gallery submission and told her she was talented and brilliant and just needed the right audience. That man had been real. She hadn't imagined him. But he'd disappeared the moment they'd signed the marriage certificate. I don't know, Sage admitted. Part of me wants to run back and believe every word he wrote. Part of me wants to burn his letter and never look back. And part of me, her voice cracked. Part of me is so tired of hurting that I don't know if I have the energy to try again. Then don't decide right now. Give yourself time. Juniper stood, pulling Sage up with her. But Sage? Whatever you decide, make sure it's what you want. Not what you think you should want, not what would make Darius happy. What would make you happy? After Juniper left, Sage sat with the letter and tried to remember the last time she'd done something purely for herself. She couldn't. Week 1. Darius sat in Thessaly's office feeling like he was being slowly dissected. Tell me about your father, Thessaly said, and Darius wanted to walk out. What does my father have to do with my marriage? Everything usually. So tell me. Darius sighed. He was absent. Worked 80-hour weeks as a factory foreman. When he was home, he was drunk or angry or both. My mother left when I was 8. He blamed me for it, said she left because I was too expensive to raise. And you believed him? I was 8. Of course I believed him. Darius stared at his hands. I spent my entire childhood trying to prove I was worth keeping. Getting perfect grades, working part-time jobs, being invisible so I wouldn't be a burden. And then you built an empire to prove you were valuable. I built an empire because I never wanted to be helpless again. But you recreated the same pattern with Sage, Thessaly said gently. You made yourself absent. You prioritized work over presence. You turned into your father. The words hit like a punch. I'm nothing like my father. Aren't you? He was physically absent, you're emotionally absent. He neglected his family for work, you neglected your wife for work. He made the people who loved him feel worthless. Stop. Darius's voice was rough. I see what you're doing. Good. Then let's talk about how to actually break the pattern instead of just being horrified by it. 3. You left work at 5 p.m., Caliph said, appearing at Darius's car. Should I alert the media? Thessaly's orders. Normal working hours only. How does it feel? Terrifying. Like I'm forgetting something important. Darius unlocked his car. But also, kind of nice? I watched the sunset today. I haven't done that in years. Baby steps. Caliph handed him a folder. The CO candidates. 3 finalists, all excellent. Interview them this week. You're really making me do this. I'm really making you do this. Because Sage was right, you are married to your work. And if you want a real marriage, something has to change. Look for. Darius took a cooking class. He was objectively terrible at it. He burned the onions, oversalted the sauce, and somehow managed to cut himself while dicing tomatoes. Cooking is about patience, the instructor, a cheerful woman named Reverie, said. You can't rush good food. You have to be present, pay attention, adjust as you go. Sounds like marriage, Darius muttered. Exactly like marriage. Reverie smiled. Both require you to show up and do the work, even when it's hard. By the end of class, Darius had made a mostly edible pasta dish. It wasn't good, but it was his. He'd made it with his own hands instead of delegating to a chef or ordering takeout. It felt like progress. I want to see her, Darius told Thessaly. It's been 6 weeks. I've done everything you said. Therapy, cutting work hours, learning to cook, reading every relationship book ever written. I need to see Sage. Why? Because I love her. Because I miss her. Because... Not good enough. Why do you need to see her now? Darius thought about it. Because I'm different now. Not completely, I'm still figuring shit out, but different enough that I want her to see it. I want her to know I'm serious. And if she says no? If she's not ready? Then I wait. However long it takes. He met Thessaly's eyes. I'm not the man I was 6 weeks ago. I'm not the man who let her slip away. And I need her to know that. Thessaly nodded slowly. Call Juniper. Ask for one conversation. 30 minutes. In public, so Sage feels safe. No pressure, no grand gestures. Just honest conversation. What do I say? The truth. All of it. Even the parts that make you look bad. Thessaly leaned forward. Darius, I'm going to be honest with you. The odds of this working are not great. You hurt her deeply for a very long time. She might not be able to forgive you, and that would be completely valid. I know. But if you're going to try, you need to do it right. No CEO posturing, no trying to control the outcome. Just show up as a flawed human being who's trying to be better. Can you do that? Darius thought about the letter he'd written, the therapy sessions that had cracked him open, the 6 weeks he'd spent learning to be a person instead of a profit machine. I can try, he said. Sage arrived 15 minutes early and immediately regretted agreeing to this meeting. What was she supposed to say? Hi, Darius. Thanks for the letter. Sorry I can't trust anything you say because you spent 3 years proving words mean nothing? She'd almost canceled 5 times. Juniper had talked her down each time, reminding her that she deserved answers, deserved to look him in the eye and make him explain himself. She was wearing yellow, a soft sundress that Juniper had bought her, insisting she needed to wear something other than grief colors. Her hair was down, longer now than when she'd left. She'd lost weight, her cheekbones sharper, her eyes holding shadows that hadn't been there 3 years ago. The door chimed, and Darius walked in. Sage's breath caught. He looked different. Older, maybe with more silver in his hair. But also, softer? Less like the impeccably polished Joe and more like a regular person who'd forgotten to have his assistant select his outfit. He was wearing jeans. Jeans. She'd been married to him for 3 years and never once seen him in jeans. Sage. Her name came out rough, emotional. Thank you for coming. 30 minutes, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. That's what I agreed to. 30 minutes. I understand. He sat across from her, and she noticed his hands were shaking slightly. You look beautiful. Don't. I'm sorry. Pissed, you do. You look healthy and rested, Anne. I look like someone who finally escaped a marriage that was slowly killing her, Sage interrupted. Let's not pretend this is a social call, Darius. You have 30 minutes. Use them. He flinched but nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. He took a breath. I'm really bad at this. At what? Being vulnerable. Being honest. Being anything other than the controlled, perfect too. He met her eyes. But I'm trying to learn. I've been in therapy for 6 weeks. Twice a week. I hate it. Every session makes me want to crawl out of my skin. But I'm doing it anyway because you were right about everything, and I need to fix what's broken in me. Sage wanted to stay angry, but curiosity crept in. What does your therapist say? That I have attachment issues stemming from childhood abandonment. That I use work as an emotional shield. That I recreated my father's pattern of neglect despite spending my whole life trying not to be like him. Darius's voice was raw. She says, I turned you into a ghost because I was terrified of being vulnerable enough to really see you. And do you agree? Yes. Simple. Honest. Devastating. I was terrified of you, Sage. Of how much I loved you, of how much power you had to hurt me. So I kept you at arm's length and pretended it was about work. But it was never about work. It was about being a coward. Sage felt tears threatening. You really read all my emails? Every single one. And every single one broke my heart a little more. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to something. Can I read you something? Okay. This is from March of our first year. Subject line, missing you. His voice cracked. I know you're just in the next room, but I miss you. I miss talking to you. Is this what marriage is supposed to feel like? Like being lonely together? I love you so much it hurts, and I don't know how to reach you anymore. A tear slipped down Sage's cheek. You sent that on a Tuesday, Darius continued. I was reviewing quarterly reports. I saw the email come in. I told myself I'd respond later. I never did. He looked up at her. I have 100 of these. 100 moments where you reached out and I chose spreadsheets over you. And I can't undo any of it. No, Sage said quietly. You can't. But I can tell you the truth. I can tell you that you were never the problem. That you didn't make me unhappy, you made me happier than I'd ever been, and it scared me, so I sabotaged it. His hands clenched on the table. I can tell you that every day for 6 weeks, I've woken up in that empty penthouse and felt the absence of you like a physical wound. I can tell you that I'm selling the penthouse because I can't live in a space that I turned into a prison for both of us. Sage's eyes widened. You're selling it? Listed it yesterday. I'm buying something smaller. Something that feels like a home instead of a museum. He paused. I'm also hiring a SEAL. Cutting my work hours to 40 a week. Learning cook badly, but I'm learning. Trying to become someone who could actually be a good partner instead of just a name on a marriage certificate. Why? Sage asked. Why now? Why not 2 years ago when I was begging you to notice me? Because I'm an idiot. Because I took you for granted. Because I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. Darius's voice broke. But mostly because I finally read your emails and saw what I'd done to you. I saw the woman I love slowly disappearing, and I was too blind and selfish to notice until you were already gone. Sage wiped her eyes. I don't know if I can trust you again. I know. I don't know if I can survive loving you and being invisible again. I know that too. I don't know if I'm strong enough to try. You're the strongest person I know. But Sage, he reached across the table but didn't touch her, leaving his hand there as an offering. I'm not asking you to try again right now. I'm just asking you to see that I'm different. That I'm doing the work. That I understand what I lost and why. Sage looked at his hand, slightly weathered, a small scar on his thumb from his terrible cooking class attempt. It was the hand that had held hers on their wedding day. The hand that had stopped reaching for her somewhere in year 2. She didn't take it. But she didn't pull away either. I read your letter 50 times, she admitted. I wanted to hate it. I wanted it to be empty promises. But Darius, you were crying when you wrote it. The ink smudged. I cried for 3 hours while writing it. Had to restart 6 times because the pages got too wet. Despite everything, Sage felt her lips twitch. You're terrible at being vulnerable. The absolute worst. But I'm trying. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in years. And she saw something she hadn't seen since their honeymoon. Uncertainty. Fear. All the messy human emotions he usually hid behind executive polish. I need time, she said finally. I need to see if this is real or if you're just panicking because your routine got disrupted. How much time? I don't know. Maybe months. Maybe longer. She met his eyes. And I need you to be okay with not knowing. With not being able to control the outcome. Can you do that? Darius was quiet for a long moment. Then, it's going to kill me. Every day that you're not in my life is going to feel like dying. But yes, I can do that. Okay. Okay. Okay, you can. I don't know. Court me? Is that what people say? Sage felt herself smiling despite the tears. Show me you've changed. Not with grand gestures or expensive gifts. With consistency. With showing up. With actually being present. I can do that. Darius's expression was pure relief and terror. How do I start? Tell me about your therapy session yesterday. The real version, not the sanitized one. So he did. He told her about crying in Thessaly's office while talking about his father. About the panic attack he'd had when he left work at 5 p.m. for the first time. About burning garlic so badly he'd set off the smoke alarm and his neighbor thought there was a fire. And Sage listened, really listened, and saw a man trying desperately to become someone worthy of a second chance. She didn't know if it would be enough. But for the first time in 3 years, she felt a flicker of hope that maybe, possibly, it could be. Week 1 of courting. Darius stood outside Sage's favorite coffee shop at 7:30 a.m., the time she usually arrived, and did absolutely nothing. He didn't go in. Didn't approach. Just made sure she arrived safely, then left. Inside, Sage saw him through the window. Her heart did a complicated dance between annoyance and something dangerously close to affection. He came back the next day. And the next. Always leaving before she could decide whether to acknowledge him or not. On day 5, she texted him, I can see you, you know. You're not subtle. His response came immediately, not trying to be subtle. Just making sure you're safe. I'll stop if it bothers you. It doesn't bother me. It's just weird. I'm trying weird. Traditional dating didn't work for us. Figure we need a different approach. Despite herself, Sage smiled. 3. A package arrived at Juniper's apartment. Inside, art supplies. Not the expensive professional-grade ones Darius would have bought before, but the exact cheap brands Sage had used in college. The ones she'd loved because they felt authentic. The note attached read, Thessaly says I need to stop trying to solve problems with money. So these aren't expensive. They're just what I remember you using at that first art show where we met. You said the expensive brushes made you feel like an imposter, but these made you feel like an artist. No pressure to use them. No expectation of anything. Just thought you should have the option to paint again if you want to. Sage held the brushes and cried for 20 minutes. Then she painted for the first time in 3 years. 6. He sent you what? Juniper asked, staring at the photo on Sage's phone. A potato. Sage was laughing despite herself, with a face drawn on it. And a note that says, I'm trying to be less of a couch potato and more of a sweet potato, better for you and actually putting in effort. That's the worst pun I've ever heard. I know, but it's exactly the kind of terrible pun I used to leave him on sticky notes. Sage touched the screen. He remembered. He's really trying, isn't he? Yeah. Sage's smile faded. I'm just scared it won't last. What if he changes back the moment I forgive him? Then you leave again. But Sage. Juniper sat beside her. I've been watching him for 3 months. He leaves work at 5 every single day. He's in therapy twice a week. He sold the penthouse. I saw the listing, it's actually sold. He's changing his entire life. That's not nothing. But is it enough? Only you can answer that. 10. Darius sent a text. Can I take you to dinner? Nothing fancy. Just that Italian place where I proposed. I want to do it right this time. Sage stared at the message for an hour before responding. But I'm meeting you there. And we go Dutch. Darius got to the restaurant 30 minutes early and spent the entire time spiraling. What if she changed her mind? What if he said the wrong thing? What if 3 months of progress evaporated the moment he tried to have an actual conversation? You look like you're waiting for execution. The waiter, an older man named Leonardo who'd served them during the proposal, said kindly. Is the beautiful young lady coming? I hope so. If she doesn't hate me too much. You are the husband who didn't deserve her. Darius winced. You remember? Of course. She was lovely. You were distracted. Even during proposal. Leonardo shook his head. But you are here now. Early. Nervous. This is better. When Sage walked in, Darius forgot how to breathe. She was wearing green, the color she'd worn on their first date 3 years ago. Her hair was down in waves, and she'd done something with makeup that made her hazel eyes luminous. She looked healthy. Beautiful in a way that went deeper than physical appearance. She looked like herself again. Hi, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. Hi. Darius's voice came out rough. You look incredible. You've said that before. At our first meeting here. Right before you proposed. I meant it then. I mean it now. He paused. Though I probably should have led with literally anything else. Compliments feel manipulative when I'm trying to prove I'm different. Sage's lips twitched. Points for self-awareness. They ordered carbonara for her, the same thing she'd ordered 3 years ago, and chicken piccata for him, something different because Thessaly had said trying new things was symbolic of growth. House therapy? Sage asked once the waiter left. Brutal. Enlightening. Necessary. Darius took a breath. Last session, Thessaly made me write a letter to my 8-year-old self. The kid whose mom left and whose dad blamed him for existing. That sounds intense. I cried so hard I threw up. He said it matter-of-factly. But it helped. I realized I've been running from that kid my whole life, building empires to prove I'm worth keeping, avoiding vulnerability because vulnerability got me abandoned. And in doing that, I became the person who abandons others emotionally. Sage was quiet, processing. What did you write to him? Your 8-year-old self. That it wasn't his fault. That he deserved better. That the people who were supposed to protect him failed, but that didn't make him worthless. Darius's hands clenched on the table. And I wrote that I'm sorry. Sorry for spending 40 years punishing him by never letting anyone close. Sorry for wasting 3 years with an incredible woman because I was too scared to be vulnerable. Darius. You asked. I'm trying to be honest. He met her eyes. Even when it makes me look broken and pathetic. You're not pathetic. You're human. Sage reached across the table, not quite touching his hand but close. I spent 3 years thinking you didn't care. That I was unlovable or not enough. But you were just scared. Like me. You weren't scared. You were brave enough to keep trying. I was terrified every single day. Terrified you'd confirm what my foster parents and everyone else had taught me, that I'm temporary. That people leave. That love doesn't last. She pulled her hand back. I married you because you made me feel permanent. And then you made me feel invisible, which was somehow worse. Darius felt the words like knives. I'm so sorry. I know you are. I've read your letters. All of them. You've sent one every week for 3 months. They're beautiful and heartbreaking and everything I needed to hear 3 years ago. She paused. But Darius, words aren't enough anymore. I need to see sustained change. Not 3 months. Not 6 months. Real, permanent transformation. How long? I don't know. Maybe a year. Maybe more. She looked at him steadily. Can you accept that? Can you court me for a year with no guarantee I'll come back? Every business instinct in Darius screamed that this was a bad investment. Time and effort with no guaranteed return. But Thessaly had been preparing him for this question. Yes, he said. Because you're worth it. Because I love you. Because even if you never forgive me, becoming a better person is something I need to do for myself anyway. Good answer. Therapist approved. Sage laughed, bright and genuine, and Darius felt something in his chest unlock. Their food arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence for a moment before Sage spoke again. Tell me something true. Something you've never told anyone. Darius thought about it. I'm lonely. I've been lonely my entire life, even when I was married to you. Especially when I was married to you, because I had everything I ever wanted right in front of me and I was too damaged to reach for it. He set down his fork. I have money and success and respect, and none of it means anything without you. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. Thessaly's been making me practice vulnerable communication. It's excruciating. Keep practicing. It's working. Sage smiled softly. My turn. Something true. I was terrified to come here tonight. I've been painting again. Those supplies you sent, I've finished 6 pieces in 2 months, and I'm terrified that if I let you back in, I'll lose that again. That I'll go back to being the ghost wife who exists around your schedule. I would never. You did before. Without meaning to. And you could do it again. She met his eyes. So here's what I need. I need you to keep being this version of yourself. The vulnerable, honest, trying really hard version. Not for me. For you. Because if you're only doing this to get me back, it won't last. I'm doing it because I looked in the mirror and hated what I saw. Getting you back would be a miracle. Becoming someone I can stand to be around is the actual goal. Then we might have a chance. 2 a.m. week 13. Darius's phone exploded with notifications. The Singapore deal, the massive acquisition that could make or break the company's Q4 numbers, was falling apart. The investors were pulling out. Caliph was on damage control, but she needed him. Emergency. Singapore investors spooked. Need you here now. This is huge. The old Darius would have been dressed and in a car within 5 minutes. The new Darius sat on his bed in his new apartment, a 2-bedroom in Brooklyn that actually felt like a home, and stared at his phone. This was the test, wasn't it? The moment where he chose between work and the life he was trying to build. He called Caliph. Finally, she answered. Get here. We have maybe 2 hours to save this. No. Silence. What? I'm not coming. You're brilliant, Kay. You can handle this without me. Darius, this is a $1 billion deal. And you're the CEO. This is literally your job now. I hired Summerled specifically so I could step back. So step up. He softened his voice. I trust you. You've got this. You're really not coming. I'm really not coming. Because if I come, I prove that nothing's changed. That work still comes first. And I'm done with that version of myself. More silence. Then, okay. I've got this. I know you do. After he hung up, Darius sat in the dark, his heart racing, every instinct screaming that he'd just made a catastrophic mistake. But he didn't move. Instead, he texted Sage, was just tested. Chose different. Feels terrifying and right. Hope you're sleeping peacefully. Her response came 10 minutes later. I'm awake. Painting. Can't sleep lately. Too much inspiration. What was the test? Work emergency. The old me would have dropped everything. The new me delegated and stayed home. How do you feel? Like I'm going to throw up. But also like I finally did something right. That's growth. I'm proud of you. 3 words. Simple. But they meant everything. Can I see you tomorrow? I want to show you my new apartment. Nothing fancy. Just proof that I'm building a different life. But I'm bringing Juniper. Moral support. Perfect. Bring your whole family if you want. I just want you to see that I'm serious. Sage walked into Darius's new apartment and stopped breathing. It was nothing like the penthouse. Nothing like the cold, minimalist space she'd lived in for 3 years. This was a home. There were books on the shelves, not just business books, but novels, fiction, poetry, things Darius had never admitted to liking. There were photos on the walls, their wedding, candid shots from their honeymoon, even a few of him with Caliph and other friends, looking genuinely happy. The kitchen was lived in. She could see a half-burned attempt at lasagna cooling on the counter, a cookbook open to a dog-eared page, evidence of actual cooking instead of ordering in. You did this? Sage asked, her voice small. With help. Thessaly said I needed to create a space that reflected who I want to be, not who I was. Darius gestured around. It's smaller. Brooklyn instead of Manhattan. But it feels like mine. Like somewhere I could actually live instead of just exist. Juniper was examining everything with a critical eye. You have houseplants. 3 of them. I've only killed 1 so far. Progress, Juniper said dryly, but Sage could hear the approval underneath. Sage moved through the apartment slowly, taking in every detail. In the second bedroom, set up as an office, she found something that made her heart stop. A wall covered in her sticky notes. Every single terrible pun, every encouraging message, every "I love you" she'd left him over 3 years. He'd kept them all. And now they were displayed like art. I found them in a drawer at the penthouse, Darius said quietly, appearing behind her. I'd been saving them without realizing. When I moved, I couldn't bear to pack them away. So I put them up. Reminders of what I had and what I lost. Sage touched one. You're terrific. Have a great day. Written in her looping handwriting, decorated with a tiny drawing of a teacup. I thought you hated these, she whispered. I love them. I just never told you. His voice was rough. Every morning, finding one of your notes was the best part of my day. I'd smile, put it in my pocket, and then immediately forget to thank you for it. I'm so sorry. Sage turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. You really changed everything. I'm trying. It's not perfect. I still have moments where I want to check work email obsessively or optimize my schedule down to the minute. But I'm learning to sit with discomfort. To be present. To build a life instead of an empire. Why? The question came out broken. Why now? Why not when I was begging you? Because I'm an idiot. Because I didn't see what I had until it was gone. Because he moved closer but didn't touch her, respecting her space. Because seeing that empty closet broke something in me. Made me realize I'd been living half a life, hiding from real connection, sabotaging the best thing that ever happened to me. Sage looked at him, really looked. And she saw something she'd been afraid to believe, genuine change. Not promises of change. Not performative gestures. Real, sustained transformation. I'm not ready to move back in, she said. I know. I'm not ready to even say we're together again. I know that too. But Darius, she took his hand for the first time in 4 months. I think I might be ready to believe you're trying. Really trying. His fingers closed around hers like she was a lifeline. That's all I'm asking for. Just a chance to prove I'm different. However long it takes. Juniper cleared her throat from the doorway. I'm going to wait in the living room. Give you 2 a minute. When they were alone, Sage stepped closer. The notes. You really kept every single one. 247 of them. I counted. Darius's thumbs stroked across her knuckles. They were the only thing that made the penthouse feel like home. I just didn't realize it until you were gone. I stopped leaving them in year 2. I felt stupid. Like I was writing love notes to someone who didn't read them. I read every single one. I just never told you how much they meant. He paused. Can I try something? What? Darius pulled a sticky note from his pocket and handed it to her. It read, "You're spectacular. Thank you for giving me a chance to be better. D." Complete with a terrible drawing of a taco. Sage laughed, bright and startled, and felt something in her chest unlock completely. That's the worst pun ever. I know. I've been practicing. He smiled tentatively. I have about 50 more. I've been writing one every day, waiting for the right moment to give them to you. You're really trying to speak my language. I'm trying to speak human. You just happen to be fluent in terrible puns and genuine emotion. Sage looked at the sticky note, at the wall of her old notes, at this man who'd spent 4 months completely rebuilding his life just for the chance that she might forgive him. I'm not ready to say I love you yet, she said carefully. That's going to take time to feel safe again. I'll wait. And I'm not moving fast. We're going to date. Properly. Like we should have done the first time. Whatever you need. But Darius, she squeezed his hand, I think I'm ready to try. Really try. Not just watch you from a distance, but actually give this a real chance. The relief and joy that crossed his face was almost painful to witness. Thank you. God, Sage, thank you. She leaned up and kissed his cheek, soft, brief, but intentional. Don't make me regret this. I won't. I swear I won't. In the living room, Juniper was examining the terrible lasagna attempt. When they emerged holding hands, she raised an eyebrow. So, she asked Sage. So we're trying, Sage said. Slowly, carefully, but trying. Juniper looked at Darius. If you hurt her again, I will make your life a living hell. Understood. And deserved. Good. Juniper's expression softened slightly. But for what it's worth, this apartment is a hell of a lot better than that soulless penthouse. You might actually be learning. High praise from you, Darius said dryly. Don't get cocky. You're still on probation. But Juniper was smiling. Now, are you going to offer us some of that disaster lasagna or not? They ate terrible lasagna and laughed at Darius's cooking mishaps and slowly, carefully, began rebuilding something that felt like hope. It wasn't fixed. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And for the first time in 3 years, that felt like enough. Lovely viewers. He kept every sticky note. Every single one. Do you think Sage is making the right choice giving him another chance? What would you do? Let me know below. 6 months later. You're supposed to paint the canvas, not yourself, Sage said, laughing as Darius somehow got blue paint in his hair. They were in his apartment. Their apartment now, kind of, since Sage had started leaving clothes there and spending 3 nights a week, attempting to paint together. Darius was objectively terrible at art, but he showed up every Sunday afternoon with enthusiasm and increasingly creative excuses for his lack of talent. I'm expressing myself, he said with mock dignity. Very avant-garde. You wouldn't understand. I understand that you just put your elbow in the yellow paint. Intentional. Symbolic of something profound. Sage kissed him, quick and sweet, still careful with physical affection but getting easier every day. You're ridiculous. You love it. And the terrifying thing was, she did. She loved this version of Darius, the one who left work at 5, who texted her terrible puns, who tried to cook elaborate dinners that usually ended in takeout but always ended in laughter. Who showed up. Who was present. Who saw her. The past 6 months had been slow and careful. They'd dated properly, movies and museums and long walks where they actually talked. Darius had continued therapy, and Sage had started going too, working through her abandonment issues and learning to trust again. They'd fought, real fights about boundaries and fear and the ghosts of their failed first attempt. But they'd fought together, talking through problems instead of letting them fester in silence. "My show is in 2 weeks," Sage said, cleaning paint from her hands. She'd been working toward a gallery exhibition, her first real one, and Darius had been her biggest supporter, helping her frame pieces and listening to her panic about whether her work was good enough. "I've already requested the entire evening off. No phone, no emergencies, just me being there for you." Darius set down his brush. "I'm so proud of you, Sage. These paintings, they're incredible." "You have to say that. You're biased." "I'm biased and right." He pulled her close, mindful of the paint. "You're brilliant and talented, and the world deserves to see your work." Sage rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and real and here. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. That you actually changed. Sometimes I can't believe you gave me another chance." His arms tightened around her. "I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. You're doing the work. You're showing up. She pulled back to look at him. "You're the partner I always needed you to be. That's not about deserving. That's about choice. And you're choosing right. Every single day," he promised. "For the rest of my life." The call came at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. Darius's father, the man he hadn't spoken to in almost 4 years, had suffered a massive heart attack. He was in ICU. He was asking for Darius. "You don't have to go," Sage said immediately, watching Darius process the news with visible shock. "After everything he did." "I have to." Darius's voice was hollow. "He's my father. No matter how terrible he was, I have to." They drove to the hospital in silence, Sage holding his hand the entire way. Caliph met them there. She'd been listed as an emergency contact from Darius's business dealings with his father's company. "He's stable but critical," Caliph said quietly. "The doctors say the next 48 hours will determine everything. He's conscious. He's been asking for you specifically." Darius looked at the ICU doors like they were the gates of hell. "I don't know if I can do this." "You can," Sage said firmly. "And you don't have to do it alone. We're all here." When Darius entered his father's room, he barely recognized the man in the bed. Thornton Wraith had always been imposing, tall, commanding, intimidating. Now he looked small and fragile, hooked up to machines, his face gray. "Darius," Thornton rasped. "You came." "Of course I came." Darius sat in the chair beside the bed, his movements stiff. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm dying." "Because I am." Thornton's eyes, the same gray as Darius's, fixed on him with unusual intensity. "Doctors give me weeks. Maybe a month. Heart's destroyed. Too much damage." Darius felt something crack in his chest. "Dad. Don't. Let me talk while I still can." Thornton took a labored breath. "I was a terrible father. Worse than terrible. I blamed you for your mother leaving when it was my fault. I taught you that emotion was weakness when it's actually strength. I built you into my image because I was too damaged to see that you deserved better. Why are you saying this now? Because I'm dying, and I'm finally too weak to lie." Thornton's hand moved slightly on the bed, not quite reaching for Darius, but the intention was there. "I heard you got married. Then divorced. Then, trying again. How did you?" "I still have sources. I've been watching from a distance. Seeing you change. Leave work early. Move to Brooklyn. Become someone I never had the courage to be." Thornton's voice cracked. You broke the pattern, Darius. You became a better man than I ever was. Darius felt tears burning. You could have been better. You could have tried. I know. And I didn't. And that's the regret I'll die with. Thornton finally reached out, his hand trembling. But you tried. Even after failing, you tried again. That takes more courage than I ever had. Darius took his father's hand, carefully, like it might shatter. I don't know how to forgive you. I don't deserve it. Thornton squeezed weakly. But Darius? Don't make my mistakes. Don't let work consume you. Don't push away the people who love you. That girl out there, Sage, she gave you a second chance. Don't waste it. I won't. Good. Thornton closed his eyes, exhausted. I'm proud of you. I never said it. I should have said it every day. But I'm proud of the man you've become. It was the first time Darius had ever heard those words from his father. And it broke something open in his chest that he didn't know was still locked. Darius sat in the empty hospital chapel at 3 a.m. and finally let himself fall apart. He cried for the father he'd had, distant and cruel and impossible to please. He cried for the father he'd never had, present and loving and proud. He cried for the 8-year-old boy who'd believed he was worthless. And he cried for the man he'd almost become, a perfect replica of Thornton Wraith, emotionally unavailable and alone. Hey, Sage's soft voice came from the doorway. Caliph said you'd be here. Darius couldn't speak, couldn't stop crying, so Sage simply sat beside him and pulled him into her arms. He buried his face in her shoulder and sobbed like a child while she held him and stroked his hair and whispered that it was okay, that she was here, that he wasn't alone. I almost became him, Darius finally choked out. I almost destroyed us the same way he destroyed every relationship he ever had. I was so close, Sage. If you hadn't left. But I did leave. And you chose to change. You chose different. Sage pulled back to look at him, her hands cupping his face. Darius, you're not your father. You never were. You made mistakes, huge, devastating mistakes, but you owned them. You did the work. You became someone different. He said he was proud of me. First time in my entire life. I'm proud of you too. Every single day. Sage kissed his forehead. You took the worst parts of your childhood and decided to break the pattern. That's not weakness. That's strength. I'm terrified I'll backslide. That I'll get comfortable and turn back into the man who ignored you. Then we stay vigilant. We check in. We communicate. We don't let patterns rebuild. She smiled through her own tears. Darius, I'm not naive enough to think this will be perfect. We'll have hard days. Days where you want to work late or I feel invisible or we forget to prioritize each other. But the difference is, now we know what happens if we don't pay attention. We know what we lose. I can't lose you again. I won't survive it. Then don't lose me. Keep showing up. Keep being present. Keep choosing us. Sage took his hand. I love you. I've been scared to say it, terrified actually, but I do. I love the man you've become. The man who goes to therapy and writes terrible puns and keeps every sticky note. The man who's here at 3 a.m. crying in a chapel because he's finally processing 40 years of trauma. I love all of it. Darius stared at her, those 3 words hitting him like a benediction. You love me. I love you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. Don't apologize. You needed to be sure. He pulled her close, holding her like she might disappear. I love you too. So much it terrifies me. You're my entire world, Sage. My reason for being better. My home. They sat in the chapel as dawn broke, holding each other, and Darius felt something fundamental shift. His father's approaching death had given him a gift, perspective. The absolute certainty that he never wanted to be that man, alone and full of regrets, telling his son he was proud only when it was too late to matter. "Marry me again," Darius said suddenly. Sage pulled back, startled. "What? Marry me? For real this time? Not a rushed ceremony where I was already planning my next business deal. A real wedding where I'm actually present for every moment." He took both her hands. "I know we're still rebuilding. I know you might not be ready. But Sage, I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you. I want to renew our vows and mean every single word. I want to start over and do it right." "Darius, you don't have to answer now. Think about it. Take all the time you need. But please know, I'm all in. Completely, terrifyingly, forever in." Sage looked at him, this man who'd broken her heart and then spent a year rebuilding it, who'd changed his entire life for the chance to be worthy of her love, who was sitting in a hospital chapel at dawn crying because he'd finally processed his trauma. "Yes," she said. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you again. For real this time. With vows we both mean and a life we both build." She kissed him softly. "But Darius? I have conditions." "Anything. Weekly date nights. Non-negotiable. No phones, no work, just us. Done. Therapy. For both of us. Individual and couples. Forever. Absolutely. And if you ever make me feel invisible again, I'm gone. No second chances. This is it. I understand. And I swear on everything I am, I will never make you feel that way again." He kissed her hands. "You're the most visible thing in my life. The sun I orbit. The reason I became someone worth being." "Good answer." Sage smiled through her tears. "Now let's go check on your father. And then we're going home and sleeping for 12 hours because this has been the most emotionally exhausting night of my life." "Ours," Darius corrected. "Our life. Together." "Together," Sage agreed. 6 weeks later, Darius's father died 3 days after their hospital conversation. He went peacefully, with Darius holding his hand, having finally said the things he'd needed to say. The funeral was small. The reading of the will was surprising. Thornton had left his entire estate to charity, with a letter explaining that he didn't want Darius to inherit his money or his regrets. And now, 6 weeks later, Darius stood in a garden in Brooklyn waiting for his wife. His wife, again, finally for real, to walk toward him. The ceremony was intimate. 20 people. No corporate associates, no business obligations. Just the people who'd supported them through hell and back. Juniper stood as Sage's maid of honor, wearing purple and looking fierce and proud. Caliph stood as Darius's best woman, her usual sharp edges softened by genuine happiness for her friend. Thessaly was officiating, because who better to marry two people who'd required professional intervention to save their relationship? And then Sage appeared. She wore a simple white dress, flowing and elegant and so perfectly her that Darius felt his breath catch. Her hair was down in waves, with small flowers woven through. She carried a bouquet of wildflowers she'd picked herself. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. As she walked toward him, Darius catalogued every detail, the smile on her face, the tears in her eyes, the absolute certainty in her steps. This wasn't a young girl marrying a powerful man she barely knew. This was a woman choosing her partner with full knowledge of who he was, flaws and all. "Hi," she said when she reached him, her voice thick with emotion. "Hi," he managed. "You're beautiful. You already said that 3 years ago. I'll say it every day for the rest of our lives and it still won't be enough." Thessaly cleared her throat. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony was short and perfect. No traditional script, just Thessaly talking about second chances and hard work and the courage it takes to rebuild something broken. Darius and Sage have already been married once, Thessaly said. They already know that marriage isn't a fairy tale. It's work. Daily, intentional, sometimes exhausting work. But they've chosen to do that work together. And that's what we're celebrating today. Not perfection, but commitment. Not a beginning, but a second chance done right. When it was time for vows, Darius went first. Sage, the first time I married you, I promised to love you forever. And I meant it. But I didn't understand what that promise required. I thought love was a feeling that would sustain itself. I didn't know it was a choice you make every single day. His voice shook. I failed you. For 3 years, I chose wrong, over and over, 1,000 small choices that added up to making you invisible. And when you left, I finally understood what I'd lost. Not just a wife, but my home. My purpose. The best part of myself. Sage was crying openly now. So today, I'm making a different promise. I promise to choose you every day. To show up even when it's hard. To be present even when work is demanding. To see you, really see you, and make sure you know how valued and loved you are. He took her hands. I promise to keep going to therapy even when it's uncomfortable. To keep learning and growing and becoming better. I promise to write you terrible puns and leave sticky notes and never, ever take you for granted again. I love you, Sage. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. Sage wiped her eyes before starting her own vows. Darius, when I married you the first time, I was 22 and in love with a man I barely knew. I thought love meant adjusting myself to fit your life. Becoming smaller so I wouldn't be inconvenient. And I did that for 3 years until I almost disappeared completely. She squeezed his hands. Leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it saved me. It forced me to remember who I was before I became your ghost wife. And watching you change, really change, not just promise to change, that gave me hope that we could build something real. Darius's tears matched hers. So today, I'm promising to never lose myself again. To speak up when I'm unhappy instead of suffering in silence. To demand the partnership I deserve. But I'm also promising to see you, all of you, including the broken parts, and love you anyway. Sage smiled through her tears. I promise to keep painting and creating and being myself. To fill our home with terrible puns and sticky notes and joy. To fight for us when things get hard. And to always, always remember that love is a verb, not just a feeling. I love you, Darius. And I'm so proud of the man you've become. By the power vested in me by the state of New York and approximately 18 months of couples therapy, Thessaly said with a smile, I now pronounce you husband and wife. For real this time. Darius, kiss your wife. And he did. He kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. Like she was home and he'd been lost. Like she was the most precious thing in the universe and he finally understood that. Their friends erupted in applause and cheers. Juniper was sobbing. Caliph was filming everything while pretending she wasn't crying. Even Thessaly looked emotional. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning, Sage whispered, We did it. We actually did it. We survived, Darius whispered back. We broke. We rebuilt. We survived. And now we get to live. Now we get to live, he agreed. Together. For real. Forever. 1 year later. You're going to be late for your own gallery opening, Darius called from the kitchen, where he was successfully making chicken piccata, no smoke alarms, no disasters, actual edible food. I'm finishing one last touch. Sage called back from her studio, the second bedroom they'd converted when she'd started getting regular commissions. Darius smiled and checked the oven. Cooking still wasn't natural for him, but he'd gotten decent at it through sheer persistence and weekly lessons. Tonight was special, Sage's biggest gallery show yet, featuring 20 paintings that told the story of their relationship, the breaking, the healing, the second chance. She emerged from the studio with paint on her nose, wearing the green dress from their second first date. At 6 months pregnant, she was glowing, radiant in a way that made his heart hurt with happiness. "You have paint on your face," he said, pulling her close. "I always have paint on my face. It's my natural state." She kissed him. "Dinner smells amazing. You're getting good at this." I had motivation. Wanted to make sure I could cook for 3. He placed his hand on her swelling belly. "How's little one today?" "Active. I think they have your inability to sit still. Or your creative energy. We'll find out in 3 months. Sage leaned into him. "Are you nervous?" "About becoming a dad." "Terrified," Darius admitted. "But also, ready. I know what not to do. I had an excellent example in my father. And I have you to show me how to actually love someone unconditionally." "You already do." Sage touched his face. "You love me more every day. You show up, you're present, you keep choosing us. You're going to be an amazing father." The timer went off, and Darius reluctantly let her go to rescue the chicken. "We should eat before your show. Can't have you fainting from hunger in front of art critics." They ate dinner at their small table, the same one from his first apartment rebuild, surrounded by sticky notes and laughter and the comfortable rhythm they'd built over 18 months of real marriage. "I have something for you," Sage said, pulling out an envelope. "For our 1-year anniversary of the second wedding." Inside was a painting, small and intimate. It showed 2 figures, one older, one younger, both broken into pieces. And then, piece by piece, showing them rebuilding each other until they were whole and intertwined and stronger than before. "It's us," Sage said softly. "How we broke. How we healed. How we're better together than we ever were apart." Darius stared at the painting, emotion closing his throat. "It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm really not. But we're perfect together." She kissed him. "Thank you for fighting for us. For changing. For becoming the man I always knew you could be. Thank you for giving me a second chance. For seeing past my failures to who I was trying to become." He pulled her close. "I love you more than I have words for. Then show me. Every day. For the rest of our lives. Deal." They danced in the kitchen before leaving for her show, slow and paint-stained and completely happy. The life they'd built wasn't perfect. They still had hard days, still fought occasionally, still had to work at their marriage every single day. But it was real. It was theirs. And it was built on a foundation of actual communication, genuine effort, and the kind of love that survives breaking and comes back stronger. 3 years of marriage, 0 communication had almost destroyed them. But 18 months of real work, honest conversation, and choosing each other daily had saved them. And as they walked into the gallery hand in hand, Darius in a suit, Sage in green, both of them beaming, they knew that some love stories don't end when they break. Some love stories just learn how to rebuild better than before. The end. From broken to rebuilt, from invisible to seen, from 3 years of silence to a lifetime of communication. They did it. They actually did it. What was your favorite moment in their journey? The sticky notes? The second proposal? The wedding vows? Tell me everything in the comments. And remember, it's never too late to choose different. To show up. To love better.